Hello viewers, today we are going to discuss Unit 11 of your course Production Management, that is BME 013. The name of the topic is Logistic, Inbound and Outbound. I am your course coordinator, Dr. Ashish Agrawal from School of Engineering and Technology, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. The topic which we are going to discuss today is a very important topic. Though all the topics which we have covered or which we are going to cover have equal importance, but in today's environment, when there is a pandemic, where there is a problems of food supply chain, this understanding about the logistic, whether it is an inbound logistic or outbound logistic, it is must for every citizen of India today. The logistic means something provided or some technique by which the material moved from one end to another end. If we are talking about inbound logistic, it is from supplier to manufacturer, or outbound, that means from manufacturer to the retailer, to dealer, to distributor, and ultimately to the end customer or the client or any person who is requiring the product for their end use. So what we are going to cover in this today's session? Whatever we will discuss, after the end of your session, you will be able to define what is logistic. You will be able to describe facets of logistic, that is transportation, warehousing and information system. You will be able to portray logistic as a key to supply chain management. We will also briefly discuss about the supply chain management. What is meant by inbound logistic and what is meant by outbound logistic, that you will be able to discuss. You will be able to describe logistic from supplier to manufacturer and manufacturer to consumer. So these are some of the objectives of the present session. If we see about the logistic, there is a great deal of material that is moved in and out of an organization. Organizations collect raw materials from supplier, process them and then deliver finished good to the customer through their retailer, dealer or distributor. Therefore, if we define, it is a logistic that executes this function. In other words, logistics is the function that moves both tangible material, just like raw materials, and intangible materials like information through the operation to the customer as a finished product. Now, what is the role of logistic in today's environment or in production technology or in manufacturing company? The role of logistic has been perceived by many senior managers and executives, and it is nothing but getting the right product at right place in right time and within the optimum cost. However, in recent time, to be successful logistician, a wider perspective has to be developed with due consideration to strategic role played by logistic management in an organization. Strategic management of acquisition, movement, storage of raw material, production and shipment to delivery to end user are some of the significant tasks of logistic management. Cost effectiveness, speed and reliable delivery are the inherent requirement to make the logistic operation successful. Logistic is very intricate yet a very simple subject to learn about. It is complicated task to manage in case the channel of logistics are not in place or not integrated. That means logistic becomes easy when the channels are integrated and we have defined the channel. If the channels are not integrated, it becomes a complex procedure to manage the logistic. Logistic require a lot of coordination and integration at the highest level and at the lowest level. It is rightly said that logistician phone never stops ringing. He moves from crisis to crisis and from one criticality to another criticality in order to properly manage the function. We will begin with this session with an illustration. Take a case of a small businessman who manufactured and marketed jam. Those were the days when it had only a few brands to reckon with. It entailed traveling long distances from Calcutta or Kolkata to the remotest part of Bengal and Bihar, some areas of even Jharkhand. The load used to be handled up at the rear body of the vehicle, neatly packed in bright colored cardboard packages. Friends, we were discussing about an example to explain you the importance of logistics. We were also discussing about a manufacturer who was making fruit jam. He needs to process the guavas, mango, pineapple into a jelly-like substance and bottle them nicely or carefully under his eyes, seal them with molten wax, and that was the practice those days. Label them, pack them into neat container carefully enough to prevent breakage, just mark them and dispatch them to their destination. The surplus were sent to a badly lit room and stacked neatly by placing bricks under the packages to prevent against the damp. You must have observed how meticulous he was and how he was concerned about his product. So to just appreciate the efforts for maintaining the logistic or managing the logistic carefully and efficiently. One must admit here that one learns logistic in a very practical way. Right from the time you used a tricycle to lug the loads your friends carried, when you played as a children unknowingly stacking your belongings neatly and carefully, inadvertently, and later delivered them to another friend, took a few marbles in return of those proud possessions. Till date, one is doing almost the same thing, mobilizing man, material, equipment, and supplies over long distances across the length and breadth of the country and stocking them for a future use. That is what is logistic in short. As a logistic manager, one has to perform certain activities. Coming to the proper definition, the term logistic could be used to cover all aspects of movement, storage of material and deliver the material or the product to the end user. For a manager, the definition would mean involving movement of goods both at the inbound and outbound sites. Logistic manager is responsible for both supplying and distribution of goods to the next member of the supply chain and to the end consumer. In almost all cases, the logistician design and manage the company's distribution system, which consists of warehouse, distribution point and the transport system. If we talk about the role of a logistic, the logistic can play a major role in shaping and determining the nature of overall corporate response to exploit the market opportunities. Marketing forecasts precede exploration of market opportunities, since overall potential of the market, consumer profile, price or volume combinations, reseller profile is to be identified before the best suited infrastructure is utilized to maximize the opportunities available. As an activity logistic, it enables in a broader view that has to be undertaken on how the available opportunity can at the best be approached. This would further enable the management to review the number of production options available, whether it is manufacturing or component assembly operation or a combination approach. If we talk about the characteristics of logistics, an important characteristics of this decision process concern the relationship between fixed and variable cost and also through the product life cycle. This will require a view of markets, the response of product competitor and an assessment of market risk. You will appreciate here that logistic not only means to provide all the resources at the manufacturer and through inbound logistic. That means we have to carry all the raw material, equipment, manpower to manufacture so that some material can be produced. So this all will come in inbound logistic. Here the most important thing, if anything does not or do not reach at time, the product will never be take its own shape. Similarly, when we talk about the outbound logistic, it is very essential to carry the finished product or to transport the finished product to the dealer in a right way or in a proper way. If the material, for example, if I take the example of car or scooter or motorcycle, if it is not reaching to the dealer, then it will be very difficult to sell or to satisfy the customer for the non-availability of the product. So that is the characteristics of the logistic, and it is very important to maintain a relationship between fixed and variable cost because we are taking the assessment of the market risk also. If we talk about the logistic is so important. It can make a company, or it can make a business, or it can fail the or mar a company or its business. Now, how it is possible? Once logistic decision is taken, you will appreciate it is very difficult to change this decision. That means if we are talking about the inbound logistic, we have to identify the supplier, we have to identify the way in which our inbound logistic will work. If it continues and it is not successful, the right material, raw material will never reach at right time at the manufacturer. The result will be the failure in the production process. Failure of logistic will affect the company reputation, and it will also affect the market share. Therefore, in a nutshell, one has to understand the importance of logistic, its related decision, since it is a key to effective supply chain management and also a first step towards building a strong market position. Now, what is the scope of logistic? Till now, we have provided you some basics of logistic. Now we can move an inch forward to the intricacy involved in making the logistic decision and how we will make this as a successful logistic activity. Again, we are taking an example of an army. In older days or in ancient time, whenever there is a fight between two kingdoms, the focus is mostly on the logistics. Whenever I talk about the logistic, it is not talking of a single entity. If I talk about the war, the logistic in terms of providing food, providing water, providing arms and ammunition. Since earlier they were fighting or they were horses, so availability of horses, availability of your support system, that is medical system, and also the informer who were responsible to bring the information about the enemies. Another important point is the geographical informer. All these makes the logistic very important, and it is a well-known quote: the fight is or was won by a kingdom who has the best logistic system. Even when a king or the army attacked on a particular fort, what they do, they cut the logistic line. They will cut the food supply, they will cut the water supply, they will cut the arms and ammunition supply. Because if the logistic fails, then definitely the army will not have any effectiveness in fighting with the enemy. A soldier can fight a battle in the adverse condition only when the logistician ensure timely supply of stores, ration, ammunition in all weather and in worse conditions. Therefore, two major aspects of logistics are transporting and warehousing, without which logistic is going to be seriously affected. This is a block diagram to understand the logistic. You have the warehouse. From warehouse, the material goes to outlet, then to the end customer is our consumer. Similarly, on left hand, you will find move of raw material to the product processing and also the move of raw material to the product processing. In both way, it is coming to a manufacturing unit. Now there are different mode of transportation by which the material or the product is stored in the warehouse. From there, as per the requirement, they will move or they will transport it to the end consumer through outlet. The first important area of logistics is the transportation. Transportation happens to be the most fundamental part of any strategic logistic management. Transport costs include all costs associated with movement of products from one location to another location. The average transport cost range from 5 to 10% of retail price of the product. Transportation is the movement of products, material and services from one area to another, both inbound and outbound logistics. It can also be said as movement from one node of supply chain to the other node of the supply chain. By providing the swift and uninterrupted flow of product back and forth through the chain, the transportation provides a sort of lubrication to run the chain smoothly. It also permits deeper penetration or newer market from the point of production. Therefore, in order to effectively manage this transportation system, the first step would be to establish a cost-effective transportation mode. In other words, higher customer service in a lower price leads to a company growth. Transportation system has a strategic bearing on operation of a company. Therefore, failure to identify the best transportation mode can directly affect the growth of the company. Higher transportation cost will raise the price, which will directly affect the customer satisfaction in a negative way. Three factors are normally considered, just like, for example, customer, environment, and third one is product and company. Physical movement of goods in any organization requires the different mode of transportation. The suitability of mode depends upon the nature of the product that has to be moved. Therefore, in order to identify the right transport system, the following points need to be considered. First important point is impact of transportation system on the supply chain performance. Second, there are some factors determining the selection of transportation mode. For example, what is the type of customer, what is the type of product, and what is the company profile. Here I would like to mention, under the type of customer category, there are certain category who are not ready to wait. They are very sensitive customers. So for them, we need to adopt a transportation model or mode which ensure the faster or the speedy delivery. Types of product. There are some perishable type of product, just like milk, bread. So all these items need to be reach the customer in a shorter duration of time. Then the company profile. If the company brand image is very high, for example, the Mercedes or BMW, they will customize their product as per the need of the customer. They will try to reach to the customer by adopting a transportation model that will satisfy the customer. Feedback system on the selection of transportation mode is very essential. It will rectify in case of there is any wrong decision about the selection. Similarly, foresight, flexibility and integration of available resources in the planning stage is must. Now we will see what are the factors which influence the selection of transportation mode. The first important factor is the transportation delay. As we have discussed, there are certain categories of customer who are not ready to wait. Therefore, transportation delay is the first factor. In order to obviate delays in transportation and handling of logistics, both the suppliers and distributors are relying on better communication, electronic transfer, IT tools and internet. Use of IT tool and electronic transfer system helps in considerable reduction in time delays and in better cooperation between the links of a supply chain. Second important factor is market coverage. Market coverage means greatly influenced by the transportation mode. Transportation cost influences the size of market covered in a big way. The characteristics of transportation mode are cost, flexibility, reliability and availability. Friends, transportation mode or the selection of transport mode is very important in logistic management. So we were discussing about the factor which are responsible for the selection of transportation mode. Under the factors we have discussed the transportation or the time delay, market size or market type. The nature of product influences the economies of the decision. That what is the nature of the product, whether it is a perishable type or non-perishable type, whether it is a small product, whether it is a large product, what is the quantity of the product, whether it is a low volume or high value product, then it is able to support higher cost of the transportation, which means extended delivery distance and increase in the delivery frequency. Third important factor is sourcing decision. The geographical dimension of the source market can be influenced by low cost transportation, that is reliable bulk freight service could extend the source market. Companies therefore have to consider a trade-off among the price and quality and the cost involved in delivering to processing point, that is volume and the cost of transportation. Another important factor is manufacturing operation. The selection of transportation mode depends on the type of manufacturing operation, which also influences the location of manufacturing center. For example, the transportation mode may be different for extraction based unit close to the source of raw materials, and for the consumer product satisfactions are close to the market. So we are defining that after all, what is the type of manufacturing operation. If it is a mining company, then the transportation may be different. If it is a customer oriented company, the transportation will be different. Pricing decision is another important factor, and the transportation cost happens to be an important component in a product cost. Therefore, selection of appropriate transportation mode will have a direct bearing on the product cost, and increase in transportation cost may influence the product cost also. Customer service decision is another factor. customer service policy influences transportation selection decision, and hence both cannot be considered in isolation of other. Moreover, the type of market will also dictate the decision and will vary considerably. Therefore, it is pertinent to overrule the cost factor while servicing the medical customers, while delivering speed is more important than the cost in selecting the transportation model. Now, how you will make or what are the different stages for the selection of transport model or transport mode? There are several stages. So under stage 1, first we have to identify the factors. We have discussed many factors. Now out of those, which factors are dominating factor which will affect the choice of transport mode? Then under stage 2, we will categorize the most significant factors and the least significant factor. Then we will also identify the potential risk associated with each factor. Under stage 3, we will determine the distribution network depending upon the number and the size of depot. Under stage 4, we will apply the matrix analysis for selecting the right transportation among the various alternatives. Under stage 5th, we will measure and monitor the cost continuously with the transportation mode which we have selected. Now, we will discuss about a decision framework which is a requirement for a transport requirement. Determining an organization's transport requirement will be based on the following underlying consideration. The first important is available depots, their sizes, including movement requirement of raw material to manufacture units and finished product to the warehouse and to consumer. The financial option that could be employed in terms of individual type of equipment is also plays an important role. The operation needs in terms of uses of equipment for maximum utilization and minimum operational cost. Friends, we were discussing what are the requirements for making a decision framework for transportation mode. In a decision framework, the best choice of mode available depending upon the distance. Product characteristics will also play an important role. Then the choice of equipment in terms of type of transport is also kept in mind while making a decision about transport mode. From the above discussion which we have made, it is evident that transportation is one of the important facets of logistics and equally important process in the supply chain management because it has a strong impact on the customer service and overall cost. While we making the decision related to selection of transport mode are prominent within the purview of firm logistic decision due to the factors of trade-off potential and that exist between the alternative modes of transportation and other logistic functions within the firm. Therefore, an understanding of cost and benefits of alternative transport modes together with an in-depth evaluation of overall corporate implication is mandatory. How you will keep a balanced logistic system? Because if you take the consideration of important customer, then your transportation cost will go high. Transportation cost will always have a direct bearing on the product cost. Increased transport cost will have risen the price and vice versa. Therefore, appropriate selection of right transport mode is necessary for optimum customer satisfaction and for a balanced logistic system of the firm. In today's session, we have seen how the logistic plays a predominant role in designing and shaping of a supply chain in a firm. Without an effective logistic system, the effectiveness of the firm supply chain channel is questionable. Logistic activity helps in enabling a broader view to be taken for handling the best available opportunity and how it is to be approached. In the coming sessions, we are going to study more about the logistic management and about the supply chain management. Thank you.